Hi, Alex from Online Teachers UK here. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about categories of prepositions. The reason why prepositions are so important in English especially, but also in Russian, is that in our language prepositions perform many of the roles of cases or падежи in Russian. We're very limited in terms of cases, so we use prepositions. Today we're not going to get into that level of detail. We're only interested in three prepositions of place, on, in, and at. So if we compare English here with Russian, most of the time we'll find that on is na in Russian, in is v in Russian, and at can translate as either. So at most of the time is probably na, sometimes v. So it's not watertight there, but most of the time it's na. This hasn't been written about much in textbooks. I haven't read this in any theory books. This is something that I found through my own teaching, the work of our school, especially working with Russian students. So the first category here is surface, right? Поверхность. So surface relationship would take on. So here we're talking about, let's say, my whiteboard, right? So on the whiteboard, right? I was writing on the whiteboard. We could say on the floor, we could say on the ceiling, we could say on the table. Those are all surfaces. So I think that in Russian you would also agree. So you would say something like na dosке, na stole, na stене, right? So all of those things you would agree that na is an equivalent to on. It could also be things like face, so it doesn't have to be a non-human or an inanimate object. It could be animate, like a face, part of my body. That could also be on, so you might put makeup on your face if you are a lady. One interesting example here about surface and about the next category, which is 3D object, we'll explore in just a minute. When we talk about inside, we're actually talking about in, that's why I put it in brackets here, inside, right? So it's inside some kind of 3D object. And in Russian this will be in, v in Russian, right? You would translate that into v. Here's the example that I want to get onto. So if we say something like, the bird is in the tree. In English, if you ask someone to draw a picture of a tree, they will most likely draw this. They will draw a cloud with a couple of sticks coming down. This is a kind of English tree as it usually is. So we have lots of leaves there. The branches are hidden inside, you can't see them. And the bird is somewhere inside this kind of room, this 3D room of leaves, right? So often when we say that the bird is in the tree, maybe we can hear the bird, but we can't necessarily see the bird. In Russian, in contrast, this is your nice Russian tree, in Russian winter, probably. So if you ask a Russian person to draw a tree, I think usually they will draw something like this. Or perhaps they'll draw the English one, but with branches visible. So I think that that's the key. If you can see branches visible in the Russian picture, that could give you a clue to why in Russian you say na дереве and not в дереве, right? In this context, the bird sitting here. So in Russian it's a surface relationship, it's not a 3D object relationship. So you don't say in about the tree when you're talking about birds being there. In contrast, if we want to find agreement between English and Russian, if we change this to, let's say, branch, we wouldn't say in the branch, because the branch is a surface. So in that context, if we said on the branch, the bird is on the branch in English, in Russian it would also be a surface relationship, so you would say na ветке, right? So in that context we agree with each other. In fact, in most of these contexts we agree. But this is an interesting example of where English and Russian are different. Another interesting example is with picture. and that extends to image, photo, anything which is similar to that. Picture in English will be in, whereas in Russian it will be na, which is on. So one interesting question that I asked my student was, if you have a picture with some, let's say, I'm not a very good artist here, with, I don't know, some flowers, right? In English we would say that the flowers are in the picture, they're inside this 3D object, even though we understand it's a surface, right? So we see a kind of 3D object there. But my question to the Russian was, in English, if we have a fly here, right, and it's a real fly, it's alive, in English we could say that the fly is on the painting, right? So it's alive. It's not, it would be a strange painting if the fly was painted in there, right? So we have the flower in the picture. That's what the picture is of. The picture is of a flower. But the fly, it's alive, and it's sitting on the surface, right? So on, of the painting, on the surface of the painting. And my question to my student was, how do you get around this in Russian? Because in Russian you can't say v kartinie in any situation, as far as I know. You're not allowed to say that. So you would have to, the flower would be na kartinie, but the fly would also be na kartinie. So how do you get around that? And my student was saying that in Russian you're just more specific. So you would say the fly is sitting on the picture. Muka sidit na kartinie. So that would get around that problem. So you don't have to have both of those prepositions being used about the picture. But it's interesting that we perceive certain objects, like the tree and the picture, quite differently. There we don't agree. But on most of this, I think you'll find that we do agree. We see the world in a very similar way. Moving on, the third category here is big transport. It's quite an interesting one. So if you take bus, ship, aeroplane and so on, imagine that you're calling someone on the phone and you say, where are you? You wouldn't say I'm in the aeroplane or I'm in the ship. That's odd in English, that sounds strange. We would say I'm on the bus, or I'm on the plane, I can't talk now. We're just about to take off, I can't talk to you. So we would use on about large transport. One exception is car. Maybe it's not big enough to be in this category. So we would say in the car. If you said on the car, that would mean that you're on the roof of the car. So don't say that unless you're having an extreme trip somewhere. Another one might be bicycle. You can have a think. Where does bicycle fit here? Any ideas? It's this one. So bicycle is the first one, it's surface. So right, you get onto your bicycle. There is no inside. So here it's perfectly logical that the bicycle, or maybe equally a motorbike, right, motorcycle, would also be on. There is no inside. Technology is an interesting one as well. I don't know why this is, but most technology, you will find exceptions, but a lot of technology takes on the internet. Russians always say v internet, so that's why Russians would make a mistake in English and say in the internet. We don't say in the internet, that's a mistake. So don't say in the internet. That is a mistake. We say on, because it's technology. Don't forget that one. TV is on, radio. I heard an interesting program, on the radio, not in the radio. In the radio is the technical parts of it, right? What else? CD, right? On the CD, on MP3, on my MP3 player, on my iPad, on my phone. Right? All of these things on my hard drive, not in my hard drive. In my hard drive, again, it's the technical components of the hard drive, it's the hardware itself. On my computer, right? Not in my computer, not taking it to pieces and pulling out all of the wires and so on in the computer. It would be on. So technology is mostly on. You will find exceptions, but most of the time it is on. And the final categories are buildings and places. So here we're talking about the office, house perhaps, park. So again, imagine someone's phoning you and they say, where are you? and you've got to choose a preposition of place, on, in, or at. A lot of the time Russians are very specific and they go with in, because that's probably what you choose in Russian most of the time. We would probably prefer at. If you're looking for a distinction between where we use in and where we use at tends to refer to general location. So we don't need to be really specific. You say, where are you? I say, I'm at the office. I don't have to tell you that I'm inside the office right now. I could be downstairs having a coffee. I could be outside having a cigarette, right? So I'm still at the office. I'm somewhere there, right? But not necessarily right inside. So if we arrange to meet at, let's say, the train station, right? And you arrive there 5 minutes early, and you give me a call, and you say, Alex, where are you? And I say, I'm at the train station. I say, where are you? And you say, I'm at the train station too. I can't see you anywhere. And I say, well, I'm in the station. And that would mean I'm inside the station, right? I'm buying a newspaper. I'm just in the shop, just inside the station. So why don't you come inside? So at is much more usual for places and buildings than being as specific as in. One final interesting example is with the difference between house and home. The home is a very special place, probably in all languages, but it's reflected in our usage. So house is like just a building, it's just a brick, it's a stone building. And it doesn't have any positive associations or any warm feelings connected with family. But home is different. So in Russian you have doma, right? Dom, doma. So you could say in English, where are you? I would say at home. I would never say in the home, right? So that's a set expression, doesn't change. In Russian, if I said, where are you? You might say, я в офисе, right? I'm in the office. But you wouldn't say, я в доме to mean I'm home. You would say, я дома. So the noun behaves in an unusual way. If in Russian you said, I'm going to the house, you would say, I don't know, я поеду в дом, right? But if you meant the home, you would say, я поеду домой, right? It behaves differently. In English, that is also the same. So if you say, I'm going to the house, with home, you have to remember that we would say, I'm going home. You don't need any preposition of direction there. It's just one final interesting example of where English and Russian are actually quite similar in terms of our treatment of the difference between house and home. Okay, I think that's it. Don't forget to check out our website, onlineteachersuk.com, and I'll see you next time.